Hello learners, welcome to another segment of Government. I am Mrs. Chinyo and I will be taking this segment. The topic for discussion today is civil service. The topic will be discussed under the following headings. A. Meaning of the civil service, features of the civil service, functions of the civil service, and problems of the civil service. We are going to start with the definition. What do we mean by the civil service? Especially for those of you listening and not viewing, civil service can be defined as properly or highly organized body or class of people employed by governments to work on a permanent basis in order to serve the public. By way of explanation, governments cannot step down and do its work because it has a lot of branches. It has education, for example. It has health. It has water resources. It has art and culture, among others. If you divide government itself, that is those in authority, and say they should man all these ministries or parastatals or organizations, they cannot do it. Therefore, they need to employ workers, people that will work in these ministries or parastatals that we have mentioned. Now, the employment of these people, I said, is on a permanent basis. Permanent in the sense that they work for a long number of years. They can serve up to 35 years in service, or they will work until they reach the age of 60 years before they step down or are retired. In that case, you can say their work is on a permanent basis. It is good for workers to be employed on a permanent basis because it gives them job security. Therefore, they are very committed. And who do they work for? Government employ this crop of people to work in order to serve the citizens of the country. So that is the simple definition of the civil service. Highly organized body of government-paid workers. Now let us look at the next issue, which is the features, otherwise known as the characteristics of the civil service. One, as you can see, for those of you who are viewing, but those who are listening over the radio, one of the features of the civil service is permanency. What do we mean by permanency? By permanency, we imply that workers remain in the position assigned to them for many years. Like I said in our definition, they work for 35 or until they attain the age of 60. Features. Feature number 2 political neutrality. This implies that employees are non-partisan. If you are employed to work in the civil service, which henceforth I will be calling civil servants, you are not expected to belong to a political party. You are not expected to be a party card carrying member. If you do that, it is a gross offense. Why is it so? It is so because as a civil servant, you work with any government that comes to power, whether it is a democratically elected government, as in present-day Nigeria, or whether the dispensation is a military regime. As a government employee, you don't belong to any political party. Whichever party comes to power, whether it is WPN, whether it is GPN, whether it is CNP, you are neutral. You just stay and work with them. It's like saying soldier go, soldier come, but the barrack still remains. Number 3, merit system. The civil service is known to be highly made up of qualified officers that gain their position or employment based on merit. That is, they deserved it. Before any civil servant is employed, government ensures that the position to be given to such a civil servant, he merits it through qualification. In the same light, civil servants gain their promotion, that is, increments or growth in their positions through merit. If you are supposed to be a level 16 officer and you don't merit it, you are not promoted into that position. So merit is highly esteemed in the civil service. Impartiality. The civil service perform their duties without showing favoritism. They don't treat Mr. A based on his ethnicity or religion and treat Mr. B differently. What Mr. A is given because he deserves, if Mr. B comes and deserves, he is also given. They are not partial based on ethnicity, religion, or friendship. They are neutral. Whoever enters their office to be served, the civil servant will serve such a person without reference to any of the above variables. Number 5, the civil service operate within the framework of the law. This implies that government work is guided by rules and regulation. Every office you enter, you will find out that they have set rules that governs their conduct. They do not operate outside those rules or law. The reason being, as much as possible, government wants officers to be fair in their dealings and not abuse their positions, which will ensure or guarantee fairness to all. Strict procedures. If there is any organization that follows strict procedures, it is a civil service. They discharge their duties in accordance with laid down procedures or protocol. For example, a citizen coming to the Ministry of Education, for instance, desiring to see the permanent secretary. That citizen cannot just walk straight into the office of the permanent secretary. There are protocols, there are steps that must be observed, and the civil servant in that office would tell the citizen that these are the steps expected of you to take before you see the permanent secretary. And except he does that, he will not be able to do what? He will not be able to see the permanent secretary. That is what we mean by what? Strict. They are very serious in the observance of laid down protocols for any function to be performed. Hierarchy. Hierarchy means step-by-step arrangements from the bottom to the top, and from the top to the bottom. It is like a pyramid. Now, in the civil service, officers are arranged in order of seniority. Let me give you an example. Ministry of Education. In the Ministry of Education, the number one civil servant, let's use Kaduna State as an example. The number one civil servant and the most senior civil servant in Kaduna State Ministry of Education is the permanent secretary, followed by her directors, followed by deputy directors, down the ladder till you reach the clerks and the messengers. The civil service is very serious about arrangement of its officers in order of seniority. In the same vein, their offices is likewise arranged in a hierarchical order. Expertise. As the name implies, expert in a field, knowledgeable, specialist in a given field. The civil service is made up of highly qualified, highly trained professionals and competent workers. If you go to the Ministry of Education, those designated teachers, sample, you realize that they are experts in education. If you go to health and sample there also, you'll find out that the doctors or the nurses are also what? Experts in their field. They don't just pack anyhow. They have experts. We are talking about features. Now, those are the features of the civil service. The next topic is the functions of the civil service. What do they do? When you talk of functions, you are talking about that work. What do they do? The work they do in the civil service. Or what do civil servants do? Some of the work the civil service does is as follows. 1. Policy formulation. It is the senior cadre of the civil service that actually formulates policies for the executive class. Now, if you look at the dispensation in which we are now, democracy, you find out that most of our political leaders are not experts in the various fields that we have in the country. They could be educationists, I know there could be engineers among them, but they are not adequate enough to formulate policies that will bring about good governance in the country. Therefore, the political class at each level depend on the civil servants under them. Take the Ministry of Education, for example, either at the national or at the state level. Whether the commissioner or the minister is an educationist or not, anybody could be appointed minister or commissioner. But he will rely on the knowledge of the senior civil servants in his ministry to make policies for him so that he can present and formulate. It will look as if it is the political executive that formulated the policies being implemented. But in actual sense, it is the senior civil servants working with them that formulates the policies for them. I hope you are following. Number 2, the civil service or civil servants advises the executive class, especially on very complex issue of governance. Now, falling back to our example of various ministries, commissioners or ministers, most often than not, because they are not technocrats in the field, you will find out that when complex issue relating to governance, we are having this issue of corona, for example. The minister or the commissioner may not necessarily be a medical doctor. So they will fall back on the advices of very senior doctors in their ministries and say, we are facing this challenge. How do we go about it? Now, the civil servants working with the commissioners or the ministers will now advise them based on their knowledge of medicine and health. They will advise the commissioners or the ministers, and then decisions will be taken for good governance and betterment of the society. Implementation of policies. Initially, point number 1 says formulation of policies. And here number 3 is also saying that civil servants actually implement policies. You then ask the question, what does the executive class do? Don't they do anything? The executive class will give the order. Okay, civil servants, we said there is need to go out and give polio vaccine. Is it the commissioner that will go out to go and give the polio vaccine himself? He will not. Is it the governor that will do it? They will not, isn't it? It is now the civil servants under Ministry of Health that will direct the appropriate staff to go out and actually what? Implement or give out the polio vaccine. That is what we mean by implementation of policy. Implementation simply means to carry out or to execute. So it is the civil servants that actually does policy implementation, even though under the directives of the political executives. Stores government information. Government in its day-to-day activity generates a lot of paperwork, a lot of information that can come in the form of memos, gazettes, and the rest. Who does the storing? It is the civil servants. They have their store officers or they have their cabinets that they store. The secretaries ensure that all this information are properly kept for future reference. The government may say, we want the gazettes that government signed or made during the COVID-19. Where is it? The secretary in the Ministry of Health will quickly go and retrieve that gazette and present it. So they are more or less storekeepers of government information, if you want to say that. Revenue generation. It is the civil servants that generates revenue for government. It is the civil servants that collect taxes, tolls, tariffs. If you go to cow markets on a normal cow day, on Tuesday, you will see some people giving out receipts and collecting 50 or 20 naira. Those people are working for government, isn't it? They will collect that money and go and put it in government coffers. The same thing at the state level and the federal government level. So they generate money for governments. Ensures continuity in government. Now, this point, I want you to pay attention very well. What do we mean by ensures continuity? How do civil servants ensure that there is continuity in governance? You see, in governments, using Nigeria as an example, our political executive class we change them after every 4 years. Now, when they are going, who do they hand over power to? Affairs of governance. They hand it over to the permanent secretaries in their various ministries. Now, government procedures, government functions will continue even when the political executive class is no more there. So the civil servants are on ground at every time to hold forth. Next point. They enlighten the citizens through their various ministries of information. If there's any point that the citizens need to know, it is the civil servants that actually go out to publicize that. Budget planning. It is the civil servants that actually make budget, especially those in Ministry of Finance, Department of Budget and Planning. They actually prepare the budget that government presents every year or every 3 months, as the case may be. Preparation of bills. Often at times you hear either the governor or the president present bill to the state or national assembly. He is not the one that proposed the bill. He normally liaises with experts through the Ministry of Justice to formulate that bill, to prepare the bill for him, which they will present to the National Assembly or state assemblies as a draft. Number 10, handle correspondences. All the letters that comes in and out, it is the civil servants that actually handles. When we say correspondence, we have newsletters, bulletins, memos, and the rest that conveys communication or information. It is the civil servants that does that. Now, the civil service is faced with a lot of problems and challenges. One, the problem of relative poor salaries. They are not paid enough salaries relatively when you compare to the realities of the day. Excessive bureaucracy, office procedures is very tedious. So often there are delays in decision making. Interference by the executive class. The executive class feel that they are in control, they are the rulers. Therefore, they tend to override the decision of the civil servants. These are some of the problems of the civil service. I have an assignment I want to leave with you to keep you very busy. I want you to define the civil service. Define the civil service. Mention 3 functions of the civil service. Mention 3 functions of the civil service. State 3 features. State 3 features of the civil service. Explain any 3 problems. Explain any 3 problems of the civil service. When you are done with the assignments, again, define the civil service. Number 2, mention 3 functions of the civil service. State 3 features of the civil service. Number 4, explain any 3 problems of the civil service. When you are done with your assignments, please submit it through my WhatsApp number 0805 870 6029. Again, 080 587 06029. I remain yours, Junior Juliana. Meet in the next class.